very committed, even though I was in front of the television set.
September 15th, 1963. 16th Street Baptist. Tell me what that morning was like. You were home, you get ready for Sunday school, get ready to go to church. Tell me, what do you remember about what took place just prior to the fiasco?
Okay. I always left home fairly early. My dad worked his second job on Sunday, so he would drop us off as he went to work. And my sister, normally I took my sister to Sunday school with me, and my two younger brothers. She wouldn't let me comb her hair that morning. And I kind of didn't feel like wanting to take her anyway, so I told my mother, I said, she won't let me comb her hair. And she said, okay, just go on without her. So I took my brothers, and my dad dropped us off, and he was headed toward Mountain York. And I assumed my duties as secretary. I was actually, had come through the downstairs area to pass out the cards, the attendance cards and the little envelopes where you record your money. And had done that and was headed back up the stairs, saw the girls in the bathroom sort of laughing and talking and putting on their robes. They were excited. Actually, everybody was in Sunday school class, which is probably where they should have been, but they were excited. So I walked up the steps. We had two sets, well, we still do sets of steps, but then walked up the second set of steps and had stepped out. Before I stepped out into the sanctuary, we used to have the church office right there on the right. There's used to be the Reverend Hamlin study, but now at that time it was the actual church office. And the phone rang, and I answered the phone, and someone said 2 minutes. And Reverend Cross had not made us aware, or maybe he had made some of the adults aware, but he had not made a general announcement to the church that we had bond grants. So I didn't know, didn't even think about what this might mean.
What was your response when
well, they hung up. They hung up. They just said that and clicked.
Then what did you do?
And I was just standing there and kind of thought about it, hung the phone up, stepped out into the sanctuary because I had about 3 or 4 more classes that I needed to give these cards to. And as soon as I stepped out into the sanctuary, it wasn't 2 minutes, it was probably more like 5 seconds, time it takes to walk from that office out, maybe 5 or 6 seconds. Something happened at that time. I didn't know that the church had been bombed, but I felt, what I heard sounded at first like a rumble, like thunder. And I remember thinking rain immediately came to my mind, but as soon as I thought rain, all of the windows started shattering, glass came pouring in. And when that happened, I heard screams, all upstairs screams. And then somebody said, hit the floor, or get on the floor. And we all got on the floor and very quiet for what seemed like several minutes, but it probably was only 20 or 30 seconds. And then we heard footsteps. At that point, somebody got up and started running, and whoever it was, everybody else followed. So I came out of the church through the back.
So you came out of the church after getting up off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Did you walk? Did you run?
I ran
to the back.
To the back of the church, and we went out through those doors where you normally enter on Sunday for the 11 o'clock service. Came down the steps, and my first thoughts immediately were to find my 2 younger brothers. And I could see that something had happened, and I think I learned in that first minute or 2 that I was out there that our church had been bombed. And everybody was looking for somebody, I think. And I was looking for my 2 younger brothers, couldn't find them. But they were in Sunday school classes downstairs. So I went back downstairs, and I remember going into the boys' bathroom first because I looked in all of the classrooms and I couldn't find them. And I went in the boys' bathroom and I didn't see them in there. And then I started into the girls' bathroom and I said, well, if they went into the bathroom, they probably wouldn't be in here. But then they might, because they were little boys, and they were like 7 and 5, and so maybe they ran this way. Or maybe they just didn't know where they were running. So I spent, this is a part that I don't like to talk about too much, but I spent a lot of time in the basement looking for them. And
there were other people looking for other folk as
people,
well, right?
I never found them. I can tell you that I spent a lot of time in that basement, but my baby brother was found on 8th Avenue. He had jumped out of one of those side windows when it broke and just started running. And I guess with no real sense of where he was running, but just he knew he needed to get out of there, and he just ran. And my mom, someone called her at home to tell her they had bombed the church, and when she was headed to the church to check on us was when she encountered my baby brother. She was coming and he was coming, and that's when she found him. My dad found my oldest brother downtown. I guess a lot of the kids just ran, they just scattered.
Now your father was headed, you said, to Mountain Brook?
To Mountain Brook. He worked at the Birmingham Country Club, which was a club we still can't attend today. I have membership in, but he was a waiter there, and he heard the explosion. And he said, when he had the radio on, my dad was a great listener of talk shows even back then, and whoever he was listening to announced within the next minute or two that the church had been bombed. And he said he turned around. He never got to work. He turned around and came right back, and he was also looking for us. He encountered my 7-year-old brother somewhere in that. By the time my dad got back, they had blocked off a big portion of the area that surrounded the church. So somewhere on the boundaries of trying to get past those boundaries, my dad encountered my brother. And he took his hand and came within the boundaries looking for my other brother and myself. He found me, but my mom found my other brother, at that other point. So,
at what point did you know that the children had died? Yeah.
I knew that there were people hurt. I didn't at first, because there was a guy that was outside saying that there were people hurt inside, but I had been in there looking for my brothers, and I didn't see anybody. And so I remember thinking that he was just trying to kind of create a little more excitement or something. And I was angry because I felt like, I said, well, why is he saying this, And then I got upset because I thought, well, did he see my brothers and I didn't? So I kept going back. At that point, I still didn't know where they were. And I spent a lot of time, for some reason, going back to that girl's bathroom, because I just kept thinking, maybe because the boys' bathroom was not shattered. You could actually go in there. I mean, it was there. You could tell there was damage, but you could actually walk around and see that, okay, here's the hand bowl and here's the toilet and whatever, and obviously no one here. But in the case of the girls' bathroom, you couldn't see that. You didn't know what you were looking at, but you couldn't see that they were there or that they weren't there, that no one was hurt. And I was at home. By the time that I was home, I remember I had been home about an hour, and Alpha Robinson called our house, and she asked me, did I see Carole? And I said no. And she asked to speak with my mom and just asked if she had seen her, and she said no. And she said, well, maybe my Carole is all right. Your Carole's at home, so maybe my Carole is all right too. And
did you know all 4 girls?
yes. Cynthia Wesley and I were in a little social club together, Cavalettes. There was a male social club, Cavaliers, and they adopted us or something. But anyway, we coined the name Cavalettes, and we were in this club together. And it was just something where we had parties at each other's homes. We had purchased T-shirts with our names and the club Big C on it. We had purchased hats and so forth. In fact, we made those purchases. We ordered those things, John Singleton, when it was still open, right before the church was bombed. And those items that she had ordered, we took to her mother's house after, probably about 2 weeks after the church was bombed. Denise I knew well, didn't spend a lot of time with Denise. She was a lot younger than I was, but I knew her. And I always thought she was a very happy, delightful child, you know, around the church. She was very pleasant to be around. Addie was very quiet. Addie was in my Sunday school class. And I think, I always think of them, when earlier you asked a question about preferential treatment. I think a lot of how a person feels, or what they think they see, is how they feel about themselves. And I always felt like Addie was one of those persons maybe that didn't feel very good about herself. She was not a very attractive girl, but she was very quiet, very mannerable, and just, you know, in our Sunday school class, but just didn't have a lot to say. And we knew that that was a large family of them, that they would come in and we all talked and played together. But I think there was probably more troubling her than we knew at that time. And I say that based on conversations I had with her sister, older sister, Junie. And, but I think, you know, with a lot of people that weren't totally comfortable with themselves, that there may have been the perception. And I think there was definitely that perception with them, that they were different.
You being secretary in the church,